Hello there, my dear. If you find yourself scared to share your writing or stories with others, then this is the video for you. I'm going to share with you why you're struggling to share your writing with others and four things to remember as you linger over that submit or publish button on the internet or wherever you're seeking to submit your stuff to. Alrighty, so let's get into it. So, in this first part of the video, I want to acknowledge all that yucky stuff that's actually keeping you from sharing. And I'm going to give you a couple of things to remember and to consider, but without some awareness of like where this is coming from, like we're just bypassing the fear, right? And that's not really supportive. And I don't think that's a good place to share from, right? So I'm going to share a couple of reasons or some of the deeper reasons you may have for not sharing your work as quickly as you think you should, or not at all. The first one is the need to represent you and your entire like culture, ethnicity, race, like right? Like as a woman of color, it's a story as old as time, right? I'm an accomplished woman. And when I have a doctorate degree. There's like 2 or 3% Latinas that get a doctorate degree. And so sometimes as we keep reaching for more and achieving more, we're seeking to ensure that all those hasty stereotypes about our people in society is something that we're not falling in alignment with, right? Falling into, right? And so it's also a story as old as time in the sense of writing in the publishing world, right? That like as a person of color, it's a lot harder to show like this multifaceted part of who we are, no matter how accomplished we are, um, because we're wondering what it'll mean for our representation of a certain group of people that we quote unquote um, identify with, right? And the sad part is that that means that like the stories that are out are probably quite limiting, right? That at times they don't really account for like the actual diversity of stories that are within our group of people, right? Because otherwise we just lean on the superficial and not wholly authentic because we're cutting and pasting certain parts of ourselves that we think help uplift our group of people, which is kind of messed up, right? Because in some ways, like we also get to be just like white people. We get to show up and be fully human and not be thought less of just because of that, right? But that's difficult in at least our US context. Um, and there are much smarter scholars. Um, Not smarter, they are quite smarter on this topic that I won't get into, but that's also part of it. There's this that the fear of sharing is like it reveals something of you that's not going to look in good light to what you're representing, right? Um, and I mean, I could give an example if you need one, right? So if I like if there's like a family, there's like a history of family addiction, right? But I'm a person of color and I've gotten certain number of degrees and like I might feel shame in revealing that, right? Which is true, it's part of my nuclear family, right? But it took a while for me to be like I can't reveal that because then like they already question me in this space. So now what are they going to think of me even less than, right? Like there's something in that. Um and the same in regards to because I studied um like pleasure and sex for Dominican women and what that is like. And it's like there's something in there, right? Where there is a change in the way people perceive you and will treat you and how and whether or not they'll take care of you based on your sexual history, where that may not be the case for other people, right? But because you're a woman of color, right? So they're like so it tempers our ability to share the entire gamut of our actual set of stories because we're not wanting to fall into these notions and ideas that the greater mainstream society has made into a set of stereotypes, right? And so I'm saying like sometimes that's where the fears are lying too. It's like, oh, if I share this, like I become less than. When in actuality, if somebody else shared it, they would never even think that. They would just say I'm human. Um, so that's one part I think that's important to acknowledge um as like a something you have to contend with when you start sharing things that don't always put you or others that you love in the best light. The other thing that is probably sitting amidst all your fears is what someone told you about your writing. So I always there's if you've seen other videos and gotten other content from me, you'll hear me talk about this a lot. Like, what did somebody tell you about your writing? What messages told you that your writing wasn't exactly good enough? Because those messages that happened either in, because they can happen in professional environments, they can also happen in academic environments. And how do all those messages impact your ability right now to share your writing? How do they contribute to that? Because sometimes you're like, oh, if somebody told me my writing isn't good, then I'm sitting here and I'm like, well, how could I put this out? It's not good, right? And that's part of the fear too of like not feeling good enough to share what you've written based on what you've been told your writing is like. Another sort of deeper part of the fear of sharing is the silence, right? Like sometimes we believe we're meant to be silent about something and that we're the ones having a problem sharing something and writing something. But I'll be honest, it's pro if you feel like it's really hard to put it on paper and then share it, if that is one of your biggest obstacles, then I kid you not, if you looked at your ancestry and the way stories have been told, that shit is generational. And when you're finally voicing it and you're giving voice to something that people didn't want to give voice to, that shit feels harder to share, right? And therefore, you require a little love and care to be able to move through that, right? So acknowledge that. We all have our own personal histories of being silenced. And so I'm sure if you have a real difficulty of sharing, I'm confident, right? It comes from a lineage in which people were not sharing. If they shared, but it was, they might have felt like it was not necessary to share because it was known, or it must be, and it must be kept secret, right? And so if that's you, just acknowledge that and know that there's a deeper healing that's going to come through as you finally bring that story into the world. And that's amazing, right? And finally, what's underlying a lot of the fear of sharing work is your mind is in the midst of trying to protect you from what happens when you speak and when you actually share what's on your mind. Like your mind is like, yeah, there's some freaking consequences to this, right? And some of those consequences are real, right? Like a fear of no longer belonging where you used to belong, a fear of not being loved. I mean, that's some scary shit, right? And in those moments, I just encourage you to bring in the divine or whatever you identify as the divine and at least one or two other humans in your life who you know love you no matter what, and consider them right before you hit share of like, what would they say to you? What would those people, those beings who love you for all of who you are, what would they be saying to you as you hesitate to share? All right. So I also think that's a wonderful, wonderful exercise in any moment when it's even hard to get it on the page. It's like, the people who love me the most, like what would they think of what I'm doing right now? The people who love me with no, absolutely no condition, right? Let's remove the condition, right? What would they think of what I'm doing? And make sure to pick beings and individuals that are going to be like, you're freaking kick ass. Like you're doing the thing that you said you wanted to do. And I'm so damn proud of you. Sometimes we need to call in on that energy um, and anchor it into us, right? Okay. So it's that time in the video where we stop, drop, and write because we honor the importance of being intentional and taking some time to reflect. So today I invite you to explore, where's your fear of sharing coming from? So is it all the ones that I shared previously? Is it just one or two of them? Maybe it's all of them. Get clear for yourself and allow yourself to explore them in writing for just 5 to 8 minutes. Like put a timer on and don't write for more. And when you go and you sit down and write it, go in with the intention of like, this is going to be placed on the page so that it can be taken out of me for a moment and placed here. Not so that I can go down the rabbit hole of how bad I feel because I fear that. No. Right, like you sit for 5 to 8 minutes to express, release, place on the page, and then come back up. See what comes forward. Read what you write. Take 3 deep breaths, and then allow yourself to release it for a moment in time. And then consider these questions. If that fear weren't true, what would be possible for you? What would you do next as you consider sharing your writing? And who could continue to support that, support you with that? I'm Dr. Raquel, and I'm a writing coach and spiritual guide, as well as the founder of the Writing Corner, a membership in which I help visionary women of color move from writing what's expected to courageously sharing their personal stories that reflect their full lived experience so they can make more money with their writing. And just so you know, in my membership, we can help you with that because that's what we do. We hold each other through the fears until we feel right and true to put our work out in the world. If this video has been helpful thus far, because we're only midway through, make sure to hit subscribe so that you can get updates on all the future videos. All right, so let's get back into it. So, how can you share your stories even when you're scared? I'm going to ask you to remember these 4 things. When you're sitting there, I call it like the lingering button. Like, you know, when you're on your mouse, like I have this very clear image of myself. I'm like sitting, I'm writing Substack post, I'm ready to hit submit or like post or send. And like the mouse is just like lingering. Like it's there, but like I haven't clicked it yet. So when you're sitting there and you're like lingering over submission of it anywhere, these are the 4 things I want you to remember. One, you're not alone. There are others just like you, struggling in the way you are, in sharing their story and writing their story and moving through what you did. There are others struggling to share their stuff with the world. My question for you is, if you knew you were never alone, there was always another human being, just like you, struggling in similar ways as you, what would give you the courage to share? How would you approach the process of sharing your writing with others if you knew that? 2, something important I want you to remember is no writer is ecstatic about their work the moment it gets placed on the page. Okay, maybe there's like one person. Maybe, but most writers like no, it takes time to make amazing, juicy, good writing, right? And it takes time to build the muscle of feeling comfortable to share your work, right? The only way you get more comfortable is by doing it more. You never get more comfortable by sitting there wondering if you're going to share it because you're going to share it once and then you're going to be scared the next time to share it again. And it's going to take a while. I've been sharing my writing since I was 13. Um, Probably more like, yeah. And it's still a journey. So don't expect it to just like be there or not be there, like your excitement to share. Because it takes time to love your writing, just as I'm sure it was a journey for you to figure out how to love your body, your other facets of your life. It's a process, right? So 3, this is also what I want you to remember. Your writing is gonna change throughout time. It won't always be what it is right now. Like what you're hitting publish on, like is just like one particular moment in time of writing that represents you at this moment in time. And you get to be with your writing as it evolves throughout time. One day you're gonna look back and you'll be like, damn, what did I do there though? And still you're gonna be freaking proud that you did it. You know why? Because you finally let yourself share it and put it on the page. So I had this amazing moment when I was watching T Swift's documentary of her Eras tour. Stick with me. This is a goodie. I watched her perform the entire, I mean, it's called Eras, right? Because you got to watch her perform her work from like the beginning of her time in the industry until now. And I remember I remember watching it and being like, wow, man, she performs even the most sappiest love stuff that she wrote when she first started with so much damn gusto and love. And I was like, damn, how do I sit and perform love in a really yummy way for everything I've written from the beginning of time? Like, how do I sit in that seat of like reverence, knowing that like my writing gets to change and I get to appreciate it throughout all its errors? And not errors, but errors, ERAS. But I'd also love to love it through all the errors, ERRORS, right? Um, and I want to remind you that putting your work out in the world over and over again is like a process of witnessing yourself and your beautiful becoming. You deserve that. And you need to do it in order to help you stand stronger in what you write and why you write it, right? Yeah. So, fourth and final reminder as your hand is lingering on whether or not to post something or submit something for feedback. Not nearly as many people as you think are actually reading your work or care about it. Like our mind makes it out to be like, oh my God, we're like T Swift on a stage of like millions. If you're at the beginning, like you're not. When you're just getting started, you're like slowly building a community of folks. The caveat is here for those of you who are a little bit more popular and you have huge email lists. I'm going to remind you that the people who are most aligned with your message are the ones who are going to stay, right? Don't let yourself spiral toward those who choose to leave or they disagree with you. You know why? Because you're simply making space for those who are meant to be there in this chapter. And this is another kind reminder. Every time we up level or we change and we shift, we have to remember we get to do that and we get to have different people in our lives throughout all those times. It doesn't make those people bad. It doesn't make them good. It just makes it so that in that chapter, these people get to be there and they were there for when they needed to be there. And if that is no longer the case, then release them with love and move on. Don't sit here and be like, oh God, I don't fit their parameter anymore. You don't. That's going to require for some people to say no so that then the right people can say yes. Right. But for those of you who are sort of new and have some of your friends and family members who like are the only ones who are listening at this point, the truth is there's not that many people out there. And yes, it's on the internet, but it has to be found. So don't make it more difficult than it needs to be because you're not on a stage yet. And yes, it's out there on the internet. It might be a little more difficult to remove it, but I genuinely believe we make up things to be in our mind of like, oh my God, so many people are going to see this. I'm here to remind you there's a million people in this world. Well, clearly billions. But the likelihood of all of them seeing your work and you finding a humongous amount of people who are just like, yes, like I'm gonna read her stuff is that takes time. And you will get there, but you gotta keep showing up. Right? You gotta be willing to share some of the good stuff, and you gotta be willing to share writing that may not have been the best, but it's you. And it gets to be there too. Like not everything has to be perfect. And whenever I think about this, I think about artists, like people who sing. I'm like, man, some of those songs were funky. And yet they stood the test of time, right? So give yourself that grace and that love. Alrighty. So in the next video, we're going to explore some of the big beliefs I anchor into right before I hit publish on any writing that goes out in the world. You can also do it too. So in this video, I give you like 4 things to remember. In this next video, I'm going to give you like the 4 beliefs that you can anchor into so that you can get your work out in the world. I'll see you in that one.